All right, guys, today we're in for a real treat as we have strategic business coach Jim Roman here with us today. Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
I'm so honored that you came in today. I know you had a busy itinerary this week and you made time to come meet with me, so I'm really appreciative of that.
Thank you for taking the time as well.
Yeah. And so knowing you were coming today, I started reflecting a little bit about when we first met, right? And so that was a while ago. And you were actually speaking at a motivational speech you were giving at an event. And I was just there for the company I was working for at the time. And I was just so inspired by what you were saying. And I remember just like I needed to fangirl and run up and met you. I'm like, hi, Jim. Nice to meet you. Left. You didn't know who I was. And then a few weeks or months, I can't remember the timeline, but shortly after that, I actually lost my job, was let go, and you just came to mind. I was so inspired that it stuck with me into a time when I was, I would say, struggling in my career, and I just happened to reach out, and you happened to respond. And so I'm so grateful for where it all started. Now we're full circle back again, been reflecting about that. And so I kind of want to start with like the person that you are, like what made you willing to just help little old me?
Sure. So you said you were led to reach out to me. And
Yeah.
I'm a believer in a higher power, i.e. God. And so if you're led, I'm led. So who am I to deny God's direction, if you will? And so I had to follow that. So that you were willing to be courageous enough to reach out. I said, well, let's see where this takes us. And that's why.
Yeah. No, I remember as soon as I said that I was led, you kind of, we aligned right away with like who we are and kind of the way we think. So yeah, I've always thought about that. I'm like, so that's just who you are, willing, right? When it's aligned and it's right there. So I really appreciate that. Been reflecting a lot about that. Got a little emotional really, because it's part of my journey, right? You're a part of my journey. So that being said, I want to hear about yours, right? So can you kind of take us back to where your journey started? Maybe a little bit of your timeline and backstory.
Sure. I think that my journey started with my parents. My parents owned a small restaurant in Pennsylvania, and I grew up in that. So at age 13, I was washing dishes. I was a short order cook. I was cleaning the restaurant at night. And so I saw entrepreneurship right before my very eyes, not knowing that it got planted in my seed. In the summer, one summer, I worked with my aunt and my uncle. They owned a franchise. And the week of working with her was probably one of the toughest weeks working for her. But it taught me a lesson about hard work. Fast forward, it was in the Air Force, got out, ended up in Virginia, running a restaurant there, working 80 hours a week, and realized, I think it's time for me to start my own business. And shortly after that, a customer came up to me and said, have you ever thought about starting your own business? And I'm like, is this candid camera? Because no one knows I was thinking that.
Yeah.
And so him bringing that to my attention started my journey in actual being a business person.
So if you were to say like pinpoint maybe a pivotal moment or memory, because you said the seed was planted, but was there a moment that you can look back now and go, that's when I realized the entrepreneurial spirit was really planted?
I think it's two things. One, that week I worked for my aunt. Again, I was probably 15 or 16 years old. They did rust proofing, an organization called Z-Bart. And so you have to scrape out the rust proofing chemicals. And then she had me wash windows, and I didn't do a very good job. I did a half-assed job, if you will.
Yeah.
And she came up at the end of the week and she gave me a check. And I think the check was like for $116. And I was like, what's this? She goes, well, that's your paycheck. And I remember looking at this as a kid, and there's like a thing snapped in my brain, like, this is what you get. And that was a seed that was planted. Like there was almost like a spark in my brain. I remember I was in her parlor and I was like, this means something. So I think that was the spark. But then seeing my parents run that restaurant, and then my dad died of a heart attack at age 62 in 1996 it was. And that was the moment where I decided to work hard. And that's when he was my inspiration to build the business I have today.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So that being said, maybe you can kind of tell us a little bit about how from childhood kind of led to your career path, right? So you were inspired, motivated, pushed to be an entrepreneur. But before that, tell us a little bit about the career.
So mainly was, raised in the restaurant business, was in the Air Force, ran a restaurant when I got out of the Air Force, and then started my own business in 1993. So other than that, I've pretty much been an entrepreneur. That business failed within 2 years because I failed to sell anything. And so I went broke and bankrupt and had no place to live at that time. So some friends took me in and I lived with them for a year. And while I was sitting there getting my life back in order, I noticed they had a bunch of books and cassette tapes. And there's one by Anthony Robbins. I think something about being great. And I said, who's this Anthony Robbins person? He's like, you don't know who Anthony Robbins is? I'm like, no. And so I started listening to his tapes. That led me to Robert Schuller's series tapes. And that is really where my journey begun, is learning from other people. And I was motivated by them. And I fast forward to today, I'm like going, wow, they created content that motivated me to be where I'm at today. And now I'm creating content to maybe inspire the next person. So I don't want to get too emotional, but it's like, wow, how everything fits together.
It's full circle.
Comes together, full circles.
Completion. Yeah, I love that. So I know this, and I'm going to let everyone else know this. There's a podcast that you have, actually, the Jim Roman Show, and you talk about your rags to riches story. And I've heard it, but I don't get tired of it. So can you kind of hit on it just now? Can you kind of elaborate on that? Like I guess it would be the struggles of an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah. So I'm very successful in the sense that I've sold several businesses. I've helped dozens of companies go to $1 million or more in revenue, thousands of people just to have a better business and a better life. But I think where I learned the most is when I failed miserably. So like I said, I started a business in 1993, failed to sell anything, went broke, bankrupt in 95, and then ended up staying with these friends. And in that moment, I was reading a book, The Science of Being Great and the Science of Being Rich. And the book says this: God wants us to have abundance. And so I figured, well, if I built $1 million business, what if it would just be taken away? So why even try to build a business? And then the Spirit said, but if I allow you to have $1 million business, it's my choice. And if I take it away, I take it away. And it's like, well, I'll just build another $1 million business. Yeah. And so that book was super inspiring to me. I still have that same copy, sits on my bookshelf as my inspiration. So I would say going into the tough time and learning from other people, and the books and the tapes that I have read since is what got me out of the hole.
Yeah.
But the most important thing, which is getting a mentor. That was the best thing I could have done.
It also sounds like faith. Right.
Yes.
You had a lot of faith
100%
that got you through the tough time.
Yes.
Because I was going to ask what got you through it, but that sounds about what it is.
Well, yeah, because in that moment, it was like, God said you'll want abundance. And my relationship with God, to be honest with you, was not that strong in 1996. It is when I did accept Jesus Christ as my Savior that year, coincidentally by one of my mentors. Then my faith got stronger and stronger. And so that's what gets me through the tough times now.
That still keeps you going?
100%.
Because there's still tough times.
There will always be tough times. They do not go away.
It's not like a point when you're in your entrepreneurial journey where it just gets easier.
I remember one time I came back to the office and I went to one of my coaches. I quit. And she laughed. And I go, what do you mean? She goes, I quit this morning, so I already beat you.
Oh my gosh.
So I went into one of the closets and I calmed down, I prayed, and I remind myself, this is my ministry. This is my mission. And so people have a lot tougher than I do. So stop crying, get out there. You're making a difference. And, so it's always going to happen, but you always have your faith and your friends and your family to get you through it.
Yeah. And actually I was going to ask about your mission. So like that, you just kind of led us right into it. If you want to share with us a little bit about what is your mission and what's your approach?
Sure. So my mission is to help people remove the excuses of time and money to give back to themselves, their families, and their communities. I believe if you give back to yourself, your family, your community, you're getting closer to God, whether you believe in Him or not. And by getting closer to Him, you have a better life. And so my job is to help people build better businesses so they can run with or without the owners and be able to do more impact. Yeah. And then you have more of a life, and then you enjoy why we're here on this earth.
That's beautiful. That's so powerful. It's like when you have the purpose in your passion and your mission, like that's kind of what you teach. It's your why. It keeps you going also during the tough times, right?
Exactly. It's interesting, go back to what I do as a process. One of the first questions I ask my clients is, what are you ultimately trying to accomplish with the business, but more importantly, beyond the business? What kind of life do you want to live? Because most people stop living their life when they build a business. In fact, my dad essentially was going to, eventually one day retire. He didn't retire. He died, and the restaurant we owned died with him. And so I think you should live your life as you build your business And that's one of the key principles of my coaching and consulting is if you don't have a life, I don't work with you. So my goal is to help you have a life.
So that's why we need you.
Yeah, thank you.
We need you to have a life. I love that. So I know that you work with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of businesses. So you must have seen maybe some patterns in there. And so I wanted to ask you, is there a kind of almost like initiation where you go through a rough patch or you hit a rock bottom or you go bankrupt? Like those are the stories you hear, like the rags to riches. Do most people go through something like that? And have you seen that as a trend?
As a trend, I think it is a trend because they don't know. We don't know when we start a business. Most of we have an idea, but who teaches you really how to do a business? And you learn usually by doing.
Right.
So one of the things we talk about is the 9 stages of business ownership. In the beginning stages of business, the business owns you. In the later stages, hopefully you own it.
Yeah.
And so I was introduced to that by 2 gentlemen in Ireland, Mort Murphy and John Heenan. And it talks about how you go through this journey as a business owner, to your point, that there's stage 1 is you have an idea. It's a concept. It's exciting. Stage 2 is startup, where you actually now have to go put it into practice. And then stage 3 is survival. Money starts to dry up. Things start to get harder and you realize, oh my God, what do I do? And most people don't get past survival because they don't know that there's another stage, which we call false stability and so on. So knowing that there's the different stages and there's always better is what will make a difference for you.
I love that. I just feel like I just learned I can go start a business now.
Yeah.
And my other question in relation to that is, do you see a lot of times where people have to, before they're launching, they're, creating their vision, maybe even launching, they're working another job or like they're having to juggle the two, right? Do you see a lot of that? Is that a...
So I've been doing this for 19 years. So I've seen a lot of things where people will stop doing their business or start doing their job and go do. I don't recommend that. I suggest you do both. You provide for your family, you provide for yourself. It's harder. There's a lot of entrepreneurs who have multiple businesses while they're trying to figure it out. So I've seen all of that. I just say to people, do what you can do to provide for yourself while you build your business. But some people, they're like, nope, you don't understand. I'm jumping all in. Now you're going from some money to zero money, and that pressure is not good in the sense that you become less effective. So I would just have people consider trying to do it all, if at all possible. It's going to be, so I'll give you an example. I own 2 businesses. I had a B&I franchise business and I had this business. I had 2 businesses and I sold this business for a lot of money. And then I went from having a lot of money to no money.
Yeah.
I'm like, why did I sell that business? Because this was my mission. This business was my mission. So, but I did both of them at the same time so I can provide myself. And then I got to a point where I could provide. So by selling the business, then I can focus.
So that's awesome. So what advice would you give to someone, or even your younger self, someone who is at this point where they're going to take a leap of faith and either launch or create their own business, besides keep your day job for now? What other advice would you give?
Couple of things. Number 1, I would read the following books. Number 1, I would read the book E-Myth by Michael Gerber. It talks about running a successful business. Then I would read right after that, Built to Sell by John Warlow. It talks about how to implement E-Myth. E-Myth never tells you how to implement it. I went through all the series and Michael never tells you how to implement it. I'm like, dude, man. I went through all your programs. And then John Warlow does it so well. In fact, I hired John. I bought 300 of his books. That's how powerful it was to help other people implement. And then the last book I would read is Small Giants by Bo Burlingham. It's 6 companies who chose to be great versus huge. And the moral of that story is it teaches you how to run a successful business. So that's number 1. And number 2, get a mentor who's done what you're trying to do. Because if you don't try to do it on your own, like most people do, you're going to have hard times. You most likely will fail.
Harder than we're going to have already times.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So what about specifically to being a coach? Because I don't know what it is, but I think like becoming a coach, a life coach, is almost a trend now. Everyone wants to do it or something. So
true, yeah.
how would you, or what would you tell someone who's wanting to be a coach?
So I have 2 answers to that because I can read your mind to some extent. So
perfect.
So I'll answer the second part of it first. And that is, if you're going to consider being a coach, number 1, pick a focus, an area that you're going to be good at. And number 2, have a track record in that area. And then number 3, have some type of framework. Why do I say that? The first part of it is, which I think most people want to become coaches because they want to help people. that doesn't mean you should become a coach.
Uh-oh.
I am one of those people. And when I was 23 years old, I have my business card, my first business card, business and personal coach. 23 years old. I don't know much about life.
Oh.
I don't know enough about like coaching other people about their life. And there are
Yeah.
people now, no offense, that are teaching people about life that have not been around. And I was one of those people. But I look back and I go, I just wanted to help people.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean you can't help people, but don't become a life coach if you don't have life experiences and more importantly, a track record. I remember one of my mentors was really messing with me. He goes, Jim, you're all over the place. I say, you say I'm not working hard enough? He goes, no, actually you're working too hard. I said, I think I take offense to that. I don't know. He goes, you don't have a track record. You've been doing this and this and this and this and this. I said, oh, so you don't think I'm good enough? And he wasn't saying that. And so I determined that I was going to help my clients make more money and prove to him that I am worthy. And he was never saying that. And I did it. I was very successful, many awards, clients had great results. And all of a sudden I said, oh, track record of getting people results. So whether you're gonna be a business coach, a life coach, a career coach, have results, not feelings, results. And that's what will make you successful.
So if you could pick one, maybe, I know there's probably multiple, but if you had to pick one major contributing factor, what would you say was the thing that made you the most successful?
A mentor.
You said that so like, boom, got it.
100%. So going back to my story, when I failed in 1995, broke bankrupt and I didn't have a place to live, I went to one of my friends and I said, I need a job. I'll come work for you for food. And he laughed. And I'm like, no, literally, I will work for food. And so he took me under his wing when he didn't have the time or capacity to do it. And he helped me get back on my feet, literally. And then I said to him, I want more mentoring. He goes, I don't have that capacity. I said, can you find me one? He goes, okay. So he introduced me to Richard, and Richard was my next mentor. And then I got another mentor. In fact, every year that I had a mentor, I've hit my numbers. Every time I try to do it on my own, I have not.
That's powerful. So pretty much, a lot of what you're saying is like your biggest lessons taught you the most, right? Or like the hardest
100%.
things taught you the most. And also we can turn our pain into purpose. It's like such a cheesy saying, but until you actually experience what that means, right? So can you tell us a little bit about how you would kind of attribute like the struggles, the pain, the hard lessons, and making like who you are today?
Yeah, so I'll answer in a reverse way of thinking. So when I coach people that want to be coaches or business people who are trying to impact businesses, I try to find a theme or a trend in their life. So I'll ask them tell me about how you grew up, tell me how you got into this business, tell me about your successes and your failures. And I see there's a trend in that. And I'll say, well, it sounds like you're really good at helping people find their direction in careers. Like, well, how did you know that? I'm like, because your pattern of thinking is along that lines. And so when you look at my life and growing up in a small town with a small restaurant to starting a small business and failing at that small business, and I end up now helping small businesses, it's interesting how I think a lot of us have a background that if you look at the pattern, you could have a purpose in helping somebody that you already have experience with, you already have track records with.
Yeah.
For example, I was talking to someone the other day who was a coach who had death in their family, disease in their family, divorce, and depression. And so she started helping women who are dealing with death, divorce, depression, or disease and helping them get through those challenging times. And we just took everything that she went through and said, you now have a track record and experience so that you can empathize with anybody you talk to. And she's a national inspirer right now. Inspires people across the country.
So her pain is her purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you also mentioned, right, that we need a track record to be able to kind of like show what we've done, right? So if, let's say, a failure, right, like the failed business, and I think you actually list that in your timeline as a track record.
Yes.
So tell me how you make that work.
So I remember a beautician, a hairstylist, built $1 million salon, $1 million,
Wow.
and lost it all.
Oh, wow.
She comes into my coaching program and I told her, you got to $1 million in revenue. Not many people in the salon industry, hair design business gets to $1 million. You should be teaching people, one, how to get to $1 million and not how to lose it all. you personally lived that experience. She's like, I never thought of it that way. So even if you fail at somebody, you can teach people how you dealt with that. For me, it was getting a mentor, for reading, getting motivational videos. That's how I use those challenges to this very day, from my dad passing to my former wife having cancer, to my mom dying of cancer. I think our toughest times can be other people's inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that's kind of what I'm taking away from this whole thing, honestly. I'm so grateful that you had time for me today. I mean, just turning pain into purpose and creating a fulfilling life from passion and experience. Like, it doesn't, I mean, yes, we have to read book and have an education, but it's truly like who we are. We have a story, right? And like, we can use that to help impact and influence other people. Talking about that gets me emotional. I'm just honored that you came by today. So Jim, just thank you so much. I'm also going to link the Jim Roman Show. If you want more of what this guy has to say, I would suggest you go check out his podcast. So until next time.
Thank you.